Often people point out that Israel is a refuge for Jews throughout the world in case they are oppressed. And I find this quite ironic. For me to see Israel as a homeland, that is, I have a right of return to Israel, and the poor Palestinians who were exiled from their homes and live in refugee camps, whether in Lebanon or Syria or Jordan and so on, have no right of return, seems a travesty.
A Jewish state and a democracy, there seems to be a contradiction here. I see roads which are prohibited to Palestinians, checkpoints throughout the West Bank affecting their daily lives. I see the demolition of not hundreds but thousands of Palestinian homes. The justice system in Israel allows for indefinite detention of Palestinians without trial, as well as injudicial execution. Yet we in the West are asked to recognise Israel as a democratic state.
It is not a democratic land. In Israel there are numerous laws that completely deny democracy. They are fascistic in their orientation. For example, it is now illegal to commemorate the Nakba, and also if you call for boycotts, divestment and sanctions, including in this very illegal settlements, it is grounds for civil action against loss of business and so on.
Nuclear armed Israel is a rogue state. It's not just an ongoing disaster for the Palestinian people in the whole region, but it is also an ongoing disaster and an insult to the Jewish community globally.
This phrase that I also knew from my childhood, a land with no people for a people with no land, sounded so beautiful. But it wasn't a land with no people. It's as false as to view Australia as a terra nullius, an empty land.
It very much reminded me of the situation in Australia as far as the colonists were concerned. The Aboriginals were also a non-people.
10 years ago, Israel started to construct the wall, or the separation barrier, which goes over 700 kilometers and separates villages from their agricultural lands and makes the everyday life in Palestine a living hell. The wall does not separate Palestinians from Israelis. The wall is another way in Israel's mechanism of forcing people off their land to have new lands for settlements.
And if you look at the route of the wall, it does not go on the green line. It in fact cuts off Palestinians from Palestinians, and it blocks freedom of movement. It takes their land, and it's a total further dispossession. It's continuing the work of 1948.
I've come to the conclusion that the only peaceful way of shifting the way the right-wing government in Israel is moving is through the use of BDS.
Called for by many civil society groups in Palestine to isolate Israel until it abides by international law.
Boycott, divestment and sanctions is a peaceful method,
which is somewhat like was used in South Africa to change the regime away from apartheid.
I was very strongly involved in the South African struggle, and it slowly has dawned on me that Palestinians live an apartheid-like existence.
If you're in the highest caste of a Jewish Israeli citizen, you can enjoy liberal democratic rights. If you're a Palestinian that were born as an Israeli citizen, you might have official equal rights, but in every parameter you'll be discriminated against. If you're born in East Jerusalem, then you have a special position. If you're born in the West Bank, then you don't have any right to vote to the people that actually rule you. You live under military dictatorship. And if you're really unfortunate and born as a Gaza Palestinian, you also live in the world's largest jail, largest concentration camp.
The Zionist dream is reliant and synonymous with ethnic cleansing and the growing apartheid practices.
Critics say we should go to Israel, Palestine and see what's happening. I've been at least half a dozen times to Israel, Palestine, and I've worked with Israeli peace activists there and the Palestinians, and there are many activities in solidarity with the Palestinians every week as they fight against the encroachments of the wall on their land and on their livelihoods. The whole occupation is designed to choke their ability to have a livelihood.